Gate of the fantasy football season.
Here's a few defense DST units I looked at this week. The first one, the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans, they came out and played over the last few weeks here and put up good fantasy numbers, is this Titan team. Week 4 at Indianapolis, 10. Week 5 at Washington, 6. And Week 7 versus Indy, 19 fantasy points in their return from the bye. 10 points allowed, 3 sacks, 2 windows, including a pick 6 and a fumble recovery. And right here, Week 8, a great matchup with the Houston Texans that just can't move the football well. Nico Collins, he got banged up in Week 7 at the Las Vegas Raiders, one of their better weapons here. And this Titan team is a one more week stream at Houston here. Is a good ad in my opinion, and they're available right now, 59% of fantasy leagues, because after this Week 8 ball game, they got Kansas City coming up, and obviously you're not going to use them there in Week 9, but this defense gets to the quarterback. They make some plays, and especially in division, they play their defense best at that time. The next defense staying in the division, the Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts here, they've been an up and down defense over the last few seasons, but they put in a decent performance, I thought, was this Colt team in Week 7 at Tennessee. 8 fantasy points, 13 points allowed, 2 sacks and a fumble recovery. So the last few weeks here, they've been serviceable. And in Week 8 here, they got a good matchup versus the Washington Commanders that give up the 5th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. So I know Taylor Heineke looked good versus Green Bay, but I think this Indianapolis team, a home game, is where their defense and offense just plays better, is this Indy team, where they could feast on Heineke a little, get a few turnovers. And right now, this defense is available in 66% of fantasy leagues. So as a one-week streaming option, I like Indianapolis to make a few plays versus Washington and have a decent ball game. The next defense, the Atlanta Falcons. I talk about a one-week streaming option here. Atlanta Falcons definitely is it after they just got torched by that Cincinnati Bengal team in Week 7. So right here, Falcons have a great matchup in this one versus the Panthers. I know the Panthers won 21-3 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I think this defense could make a few plays in this game. And this Atlanta team, for whatever reason, their defense has one good game and one bad game, and it's usually at home is where they play the good games. So right here, this is a home game for them in Week 8 versus Carolina. Panthers give up the 7th most fantasy points to DST units on the season. I think Atlanta could make a few plays. With good matchups early in the season, we saw them put up decent points. Week 2 with the Rams, 16. Week 6 versus San Francisco in a better matchup, 13 fantasy points in terms of fantasy points from those defenses to defenses. And right here, Carolina, I know P.J. Walker looked good, and Donta Foreman and Hubbard, but I still think Atlanta can make a few plays. They're the home team here, and it's a division matchup. So right now available is Atlanta in 98% of fantasy leagues. I would give them an ad this week. The next defense, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So another defense, here's Jacksonville. A 1 week ad, once again, here's Jacksonville. They really haven't played good football in the last few weeks here, but they got a good matchup versus the Denver Broncos that can't move the football. Wilson and quarterback are rifle, and it just don't matter. They can't move the football. They've had a lot of single-digit ball games this season, just losing in Week 7, 16-9 to the New York Jets, even though they're a good unit. And Brett Rypien, if he's quarterback, and I think this Jacksonville Jaguar team can make a few plays. It's another home game here for Jacksonville, which is always a plus. And right now, like I said, with the backup quarterback or even Russell Wilson, they're going to make plays, I think, Jacksonville. And they're available in 73% of fantasy leagues, even though the last few weeks they haven't done much. They're a good streaming option. And the 5th and final defense I have is a streaming and a waiver wire claim this week here is the Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers, they play great football and shut down Tom Brady and this Buck team. I know Mike Evans, one of the first plays of the game, he was wide open, defender falling, would have had a 65-yard touchdown, but he dropped it. And the rest of the day here, this Panther team played it close to the best. 3 points allowed, a sack, and 8 fantasy points in that one. So right here, Atlanta, their offense is hot and cold this season. They're still trying to figure out the running game. And Marcus Mariota, we know he's not that great of a quarterback. In fantasy football, he's serviceable. But in real life, he's just not getting the job done for this Atlanta Falcon team. And the Panthers, if they could play with the same energy and fire like they did versus Brady and the Bucks, they could have a decent fantasy day, I believe, here in Week 8. And they're available right now, 95% of fantasy leagues. That's a few defense DST units I looked at on the wire here for Week 8 of the fantasy football season.